Hello guys and welcome for the next episode of PvP Basics for New World. In this episode we will take a look over a really special and maybe the most important part of the PvP in the game, and this is the party or the group composition. For many it might not seem that important and key, but having the right composition of players is crucial for achieving good results in any form of PvP. As we know from the previous episodes in which we discussed the different weapons and classes in the game, each player is assigned for doing something in the group PvP content. Therefore, combining those players together requires a deeper understanding of how things works and which compositions are good or bad. Since there are endless possibilities and different variations for groups, being that for 3-man arena groups or 5-man OPR, wars and open world groups, I will go over some of the most common and popular ones. The idea behind it is to give you the correct perception of how to acknowledge when your group is well structured and when you will face difficulties due to bad composition of that group. In order to make it simple and easy to understand, we will start with the smallest possible group in the game, and this is the duo. There are several different types of duos which can bring a lot of results for the players in them. The first one that we will take a look at is the two damage dealers from range. We can combine two high burst weapons such as musket, bow or a fire staff, and the pre-mates in this duo will play close to each other. Whenever a target is picked, the aim for both players would be to drop their burst combo almost at the same time, so the potential of kill before escape or heal of the enemy will be really high. This is really common duo composition and many players do that specifically in OPR. The second duo that you will see in many of your games will be the classical healer plus bruiser. In order for a bruiser to hold many enemies around him and to create clumps for his teammates, a healer is a must-have and his best friend at the same time. The performance of the bruiser class in general when they are missing a healer is quite poor due to the frontline position and the high amount of enemies surrounding them. The third duo which we will mention is the assassin duo. This one has a bigger variety as it can be created by 2 melee users but also by 1 melee and 1 range. The goal assigned is to pick and choose isolated targets or wrongly positioned players in the fight, so they will be an easy kill for the two players. In most cases such targets are exactly the healers or other light players. The melee user is the one responsible for the crowd control and staggering abilities, and therefore he is usually going with sword and shield, spear, great axe, great sword, flail or even hatchet, while the second player can choose to go either with almost same identical weapons to provide even more staggering crowd control, or he can prioritize higher burst damage with the fire staff, bow or blunderbuss. Now, you might think that each and every duo can be good in different situations, but this however is not exactly true. A simple example of bad duos would be two healers or two tanks at the same party. Those classes cannot be strong in duos because they don't provide that much for themselves in a fight. Yes, you might stay alive with two healers for long enough, but your final goal is to win the match, and this would most likely not happen. Another bad pair of classes in a duo is two bruisers. As we mentioned, the bruisers is almost always not good enough without a healer, so combining two of them without a healer is a recipe for disaster. Now, since we get to know the smallest group in the game, let's take a step forward and see the next one, which will be the 3v3 arena groups and how we can structure them. Here again you can see endless variations and different builds, and more importantly, most of them can be countered with specific picks. The reason for that is mainly due to the fact that the fights are still in a small scale and the 1v1 counter of the weapons is still having a huge impact. The classic group of 3 players for arenas is healer, bruiser and a mage, where the aim is to provide an average crowd control with the bruiser, while the mage can DPS from distance and the healer can support both of them with heals and buffs. Also, other classical variation can be a heavy melee player with high crowd control weapons supported by two range bursty players which can follow up on any connected crowd control from the melee. Third, but definitely not final option, is two melee players with high crowd control and one healer or a burst DPS. In this one, the aim for the melees is to give free time for the third player, and therefore he would either do enough damage to kill a target or support them by heals and buffs. As always, they are also bad combination of classes, and this should not be a surprise. Again, the example can be given with 3 healers in the same group, same as having 3 bruisers due to their slow and unsupported playstyle. Another quite weak combination is 3 bow or 3 musket players due to the fact that they cannot assist each other and the space in the arena is getting smaller with each second. Many might not agree, but 3 Firestaff players is also not quite good due to the fact that the enemies can stack fire protection and completely ignore the bigger portion of their damage. The next step is to complete the group and have the total of 5 players in it. In such groups you will be playing the bigger scale PvP modes such as wars, OPRs, but also open world during PvP races or just having fun in the fort. As you can imagine, the numbers of different combinations in between the 5 players of a group can be more than thousands. However, there are some of them that are considered to be the best, or how many would like to say they are considered as meta. In order to see those meta groups, it's best to take a look at the roster of all high-level PvP companies. There you will notice that each and every group has a certain job on the battlefield, and in order to get the things done, specific weapons will be picked accordingly to their strength. Without going into deeper details, we can just take a quick look over the war roster and what could be the potential variations of groups. If we go from the scratch and try to get a baseline, we can safely say that in a war we will have 2 point groups, 4 quadrant groups, 2 dex or so-called assassin groups, and 2 flex groups. Of course, all those can change depending on the plan and of course the goal of the army. Since we are talking about groups today, let's go over each and every of those mentioned groups and see what is their purpose. Those are the core 4 types of groups which contain 5 players in them, and their purpose is similar to their names. Starting off with the point group, it is safe to assume that those players will be positioned on the point of contest and most likely will be wearing heavy armor for survivability. They will definitely need a healer, and in some cases they would even go for 2. Weapons which will provide defensive buffs and block are more than welcome, and that's why Sword and Shield is one of the best picks. Another amazing pick for such group would be the Ice Gauntlet and Void Gauntlet, which will add a lot of debuffs towards the enemies and a lot of self-sustain and survivability for the users around. Flail is also key component in such group with many offensive and defensive abilities and passives. Bad weapons for such a group might be definitely the ones that are providing mostly damage or they have low defense. Examples could be the bow, the musket, hatchet or firestaff. For the next type of group, which is the quadrant, we need to know what will be the priority and the location of play. This is important due to the fact that we need to know what equip load those players will be running. In case they are playing spread out outside of the point, it would be okay for them to use a medium gear. However, if they are playing on the edge of the point or just inside it and they will be creating clumps, the heavy outfit might be the better choice. Regardless of that, in those groups we mainly see slotted bruisers, which are usually 2 in each group. The remaining 3 slots are usually used for a healer, supportive mage, and the last fitting place would be another supportive mage with Ice Gauntlet and Void Gauntlet, or a mix between Ice Gauntlet, Void Gauntlet, Blunderbuss or Flail. The Assassin group, or the well-known other name for it, Dex group, is a squad of killers. In it, you will mostly see high damage and mobility weapons, which only aim is to assert dominance over the opponent's assassins and after that to transfer that dominance over their healers. In those groups, apart from the healer, we usually have one melee player which is used as a bait, or in other words, he is the tip of the spear. His job is to disturb as much as possible with crowd control and presence the ranged assassins on the enemy team or the healers which are supporting them. This melee user is usually equipped with medium or heavy gear and weapons which can provide a lot of staggers, crowd control and gap closers. Such weapons are the sword and shield, spear, flail or greatsword. The remaining three in the group can be a lot of different weapons, but mainly they are bows, muskets and fire staff. However, in the different patches and the changing meta, you can see also a lot of other melee players which will provide even further chase potential with crowd control and staggers. Last but not least, the flex group, as the name suggests, could be a complicated one. It could be used as a filler in some locations of the fight or as a support to a different type of a group. Those players can be used for extra pressure on point or as extra numbers in the side fight of the assassins or the decks. There are usually one or two parties which are used for a flex in a war, and their aim is to react and adapt accordingly during the fight. Due to their specific of being a filler in such groups, you can see a lot of different variations of weapons. Therefore, it would be really hard to assume what will be the best fit, as most of the times these groups are heavily related to the battle plan of each company. Something worth mentioning is that in most wars, not always groups play with all their members. In many wars, they are the so-called duos which we started the video with. This will be two players from different groups which are technically playing together but don't rely too much on their healers. Their group in that case are playing with the remaining 4 players and they are following the plan either on the point or around it. The topic of group composition can be extremely long due to the many different possibilities and different scenarios. However, I believe that this is the baseline for every new player or anyone who is still new to the PvP new world or the war scene. Many different strategies include strange and unique variations, but I believe that I've mentioned the core and the classic composition of groups. I really hope that the information will be useful and I would like to hear your feedback. If I forgot to mention something or you have any questions and suggestions, please let me know in the comments or simply join my Discord community linked in the description below. I'm also leaving a link for my stream where you can catch me live from Wednesday to Sunday and we can have a discussion for anything related New World. And with that guys, I want to thank you for watching and I will see you on the next one.